Regular use of conference committees. The prime sponsor of a bill should have the authority to request a conference committee when bills addressing the same subject have been passed by both houses. The conference committee should convene within 2 weeks of such a request. These sessions should be open to the public and should be transcribed. According to the analysis completed by the Brennan Center, one of the major failures of the New York legislature is the failure to reconcile differences in bills passed by the Assembly and the Senate. Senate and Assembly members who have worked so hard to develop a bill and guide it through the entire legislative process should be empowered to call for and to participate in a conference committee as the second to the last step to the bill being passed by the legislature. As you know, there are other recommendations offered by the Brennan Center. We believe all their ideas have merit and should be considered as the core of the changes you recommend. The changes recommended by the Brennan Center will go a long way toward making the legislative process transparent, empowering each legislator to have a voice in the deliberations of the committees and the full House, and balancing the representation among all citizens. These rules changes will also help to balance the commitments legislators have to special interests with their responsibility to maintain the public structures that American prosperity and quality of life depend on. Finally, an important leadership role you can take is to deliver the results of your committee's public hearings to all the members of the Assembly as well as to the Senate. The Senate has taken the lead by creating this committee, having these hearings to gather information, and considering and developing recommendations for rules changes. We ask you to urge your colleagues in the Assembly to take similar action to open up the way their House conducts itself. For New York to achieve the promise of a better future, we must eliminate the stranglehold of the Assembly leader and Senate Majority Leader on the committee's legislative agenda, calendar, and process. The current antiquated and restrictive rules in both houses serve as a bottleneck to the efficiency of the process and the effectiveness of the outcomes of the legislature. They also serve to block out the roles of citizens, especially those who live in districts represented by a legislator who is a member of the minority party. I have enjoyed the opportunity of representing our membership and of speaking with you today. For 4 years, Citizens for a Better New York has been working to gain the attention of legislators to change the way they do business. We've been writing op-ed pieces and letters to the editor. We've been writing to and meeting with our local representatives, and we've been collaborating with other advocacy groups. We've also been speaking to groups of citizens, demonstrating in Albany, and talking with news reporters to try to achieve the changes I've discussed with you today. It is refreshing to be able to come before you in this open, very public setting and to discuss with you how an open and accountable, efficient, and effective process for our most important public structure can become commonplace. It fosters images of citizens of our country's revolutionary period, coming together to discuss and decide how we should shape our governing bodies. It's refreshing. It's the way it's supposed to be. It's the way we teach our children about how democracy works in America. Hearings such as this should become commonplace in the workings of the legislature. Transparency in the processes of formulation, debate, and voting on legislation should be the standard. Having an open legislative process that reaches out to the public through committee hearings is a way for the legislature to ask for citizen participation in developing the public policies and laws that guide us toward the quality of life and economic success we want in New York. It is this kind of citizen responsibility that our new president is asking all Americans to take up. There's a lot of talk going on in Washington about how we might increase our investment in our highways, bridges, and other infrastructure to serve us better in the future while stimulating our economy. Let's work together to fix the public structures of New York, to improve our state's economy and our quality of life. Thanks for listening. I welcome any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Neal. Can we?
Mr. Neal, before you run, I'm just going to throw out a general question. I could have asked it of Dr. Rea or Dr. Patterson or even our good friend Senator Hoffman. Do you think when legislation, a bill comes before the members of our Senate, if it's a mandate, it should be stamped mandate on page 1. If it's a tax bill, it should be stamped tax with the fiscal implications. Just so it's a red flag, there's been criticism of unfunded mandates that come down or shifting of expenses to the local governments. Think it's a good idea? And for the others that I threw it out generally, if you drop a note to the committee, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that one. Okay?
This is a good question. I guess I would have to ask a question in return, and that's who gets to make the decision as to what category gets put in?
Are you saying whether the word mandate
Yeah.
or tax, you mean it may not be obvious that
No,
from
I
reading the
mean there may
legislation?
be political considerations for deciding what barrel to put the bill in.
No, we're saying if a bill is in print and it gets to the floor or onto the floor, that it should, for us to vote on, should it have the word mandate stamped on it, or alternatively, the word tax on it with the fiscal implications before we vote on that bill? That's my question.
I don't have a straightforward answer to that, just that in general, I think the issue of transparency is paramount, so anything that would increase the transparency of the process would be a good thing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Mike